What about Spencer Rattler, Emory? I know you were one of the first people to talk about this, that with how he played against Clemson and down the stretch and Tennessee, that he might actually decide to turn pro. He's coming back to South Carolina. I kind of think it's the right decision. You know, it's pretty small sample size of him playing that well. If he comes back and plays that well for a whole year, he could be like one of the guys we're talking about next year.
Right. His situation reminded me a lot of, and I felt the same way. It reminded me a lot of Cardell Jones's situation at Ohio State. Like, hey, man, listen, you had one of the more impressive runs in a short sample size that you could ever have. Big games mattering in the regular season. The last game you needed to win to get into the conference championship game, you won that one. You had to win the conference championship game. You had to win this playoff game against Bama, and you had to beat Oregon in the national championship. You went on an impressive run. Make the league make the decision. Don't go back to school, because now you have a full season to have them pick apart your game. How are you going to top the last 4 games you just competed in? You won't. And for Rattler, it's like, hey man, your name was already high prior to 2021, and then it kind of went down. And then last year, earlier this year, you were struggling a little bit. Now you're catching fire. Now you're on point. You had a really good, game against Notre Dame. You didn't win, but you made some amazing throws. You were competitive. You scored a lot of points. You might want to leave while your iron is hot in a draft class that you could, at least in my opinion, he's a better player and prospect than Will Levis. So now teams that, let's say like the New York Giants, that may be looking for a quarterback of the future that's picking late, depends on what they, really think of Daniel Jones and, how much they're going to try to pay him. But if you're going to get it, because right now the Giants are in the back end of the draft. So they're not in franchise quarterback territory. They'll have to trade up if they love a guy. But if you throw yourself into this draft class that right now everyone's talking about, Bryce Young, Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, you become that fifth guy. You become that wild card guy. So you become the guy that you can have in it, because you're going to kill pro day. You're going to kill the combine with the throws. You're going to kill those private workouts. You have a chance to really be a first round pick, regardless of what the draft advisory committee says. And so now you come back and like, man, okay, do we go back into the pool next year and hope to increase? You have some guys coming back, but also some guys left. South Carolina transferred out, to go elsewhere. So the team may be different. You want to work with the offensive coordinator that works well with pro quarterbacks, so you have a reason to go back. But I'm always like, listen, man, your value when everyone's talking positively about you is probably at its highest right now. So leave and go and play pro ball. Even if it doesn't work out for you in terms of getting drafted high, look at a guy like Sam Howell, who now will go into the offseason and into next year as Washington's starting quarterback. But maybe Washington would have thought differently if you came out in this class. Maybe the Texans may see you and say, you know what, man, maybe we can use our 2 first-round picks on position players, trade back into the first, and take Rattler with our 3rd first. You entering the draft puts a lot on the table. And so next year, now you're competing with Caleb Williams. You're competing with Drake May. You're competing with Shedeur Sanders. You're competing with all of these other quarterbacks. You really have to not only do what you did the last 4 games, but you have to do that for 15 games, 12, and if you go into the playoffs. So I understand why he went back, but like I was saying when Cardell Jones was coming out, I probably would have jumped to the NFL while everyone was singing praises about my name.
Yeah, no, I remember saying I thought Cardell Jones should go pro.